The film begins with a lady named Gu Zhenjin. At that time, Zhenjin isn't a big-shot actress or anything, but she's trying her best in the acting world. Unfortunately, life throws her a curveball when her little sis, Jemmy, falls seriously sick. The medical bills pile up, becoming a mountain Zhenjin just can't climb. It's too expensive and she's out of options. Desperate, she turns to a top dog at her work, a guy named Yunshin, hoping he could lend her some cash. Turns out Yunshin isn't just anyone. He's quite the looker and his pockets are deep. Then Zhenjin spills her heart out, telling him why she needs the money, and Yunshin says yes. But he wants Zhenjin to marry him in exchange. Now before you judge, Zhenjin had the same reaction, letting him know she isn't that kind of woman. Yunshin, however, clarifies it's all to keep his grandma happy, nothing shady. Zhenjin sees the sincerity in his eyes and agrees, and voila, they're hitched. They put on quite the show for Yunshin's grandma, playing the loving couple to perfection. Grandma is none the wiser, completely buying the romantic act. And that's how Zhenjin and Yunshin end up in a pretend marriage, creating a show of love and romance for an unsuspecting old lady. After a while, Zhenjin and Yunshin started to roll with the husband and wife vibe. Yunshin, whenever he finished work, made a beeline for home, eager to see Zhenjin. But then, whoa, an accident shook things up big time. Poor Yunshin got a dose of amnesia from it, and the only thing his mind clung to. Zhenjin being his alleged wife. Zhenjin, obviously, was thrown for a loop because according to the plan, their pretend marriage was supposed to have an expiration date. She could have started her usual life again. She tried to get Yunshin to grasp that she was just a contract wife, but he wasn't buying it, demanding some concrete proof. The kicker here is, Zhenjin had ripped up their contract a while back. Add to that, Yunshin's assistant and his grandma vouched that the two were an actual married couple. Even Yunshin's phone password was Zhenjin's birthday, of all things. In that moment, Zhenjin was spinning. No way to prove the marriage was a sham, even though the whole charade was initially for Yunshin's grandma's sake. In a twist of irony, Zhenjin found herself really tangled up in this contract marriage because, without proof and losing the argument, she was stuck. And so Zhenjin, somewhat reluctantly, found herself settling back into life at Yunshin's place, no longer playing house but sort of really being in one. After a while, Yunshin, all recovered from his accident, made it back home. Things took an unexpected turn when in her eyes. Yunshin started getting a bit too close, seemingly trying to seduce her. Panic surged through her, but wait, it turned out to be all in her head. When she jolted out of this daydream, she accidentally shared a kiss with Yunshin, which left her cheeks blazing with embarrassment. As the clock ticked on, Zhenjin was on a mission, brainstorming ways to get Yunshin to back off. Finally, she concocted a lie, painting herself as this wild, materialistic partygoer. She even threw in a fictional lover and nightclub escapades into the mix. Taking Yunshin to a club to meet her so-called lover, she put on quite the act. But Yunshin, he just flashed a knowing smile, unfooled by the poor performance of Zhenjin and her pretend lover. Without a word, Yunshin gently lifted Zhenjin and brought her back home. The following day at their home, tension was in the air as Yunshin pulled Zhenjin close on the sofa, urging her to drop the act. Zhenjin's anxiety was dialing up, especially with Yunshin's face inching closer and closer. Just then, a knock on the door busted the romantic bubble. Phew! But the guest, Yusha, Yunshin's mom, was an unexpected twist. It's important to note that Yunshin and his mom, Yusha, weren't exactly tight. Yusha hadn't been around much during Yunshin's younger days, but now that he was rolling in success, she sure knew where his door was, even seeking to cash in on his amnesia. She spun a tale about Yunshin fathering a child, implying he should cough up some money. Initially, Zhenjin felt a sting of happiness, thinking maybe Yunshin would be diverted by other womanly worries. But upon deciding to leave, worry nudged at her, fearing Yunshin might fall victim to deceit by Yusha and others around him. Zhenjin's fears weren't unfounded. When she returned, she found Yunshin on the brink of eating something he was allergic to and swooped in just in time to prevent a disaster. Yusha's sneaky deeds came to light, and she was promptly shown the door by Yunshin. Amidst the chaos, a concerned Zhenjin hunted down some medicine for Yunshin. As he took it, she found herself unexpectedly entranced by his strong physique, revealing a tender, vulnerable spot amidst the tense drama unfolding around them. Seeing Zhenjin with that expression, Yunshin started teasing her again. Despite his jabs, Zhenjin stood firm, assuring him that someday he'd get what she meant about the whole contract wife thing. Fast forward a bit, and we find Zhenjin grappling with a heap of work stress. She sought solace in a drink, or a few too many, to be honest. Eventually, Yunshin shows up, scoops her into his arms, and even tends to her accidentally sprained leg. Just when he's about to head out, Jensen grabs him, gently tugging him into bed with her, and so they spent the night together. The next morning, Jensen woke up, quite shocked to find Yunshin right there beside her. Was last night a dream, or did it really happen? She wondered, but life goes on, and despite not feeling well, Jensen had to get back to her artistry work. Yunshin, caring as he was, insisted on taking her to work. He had even planned to give her some medicine for her still aching leg, but Jensen was running late, so he thought, we'll just wait and give it to her during her break. While he was waiting, Yunshin overheard two crew members speaking ill of Jensen, and he couldn't contain his anger. He confronted them physically. Just as this was happening, Jensen appeared, and she had her boss, Wangzu, with her. Unfortunately, she got the wrong idea about what was going on with Yunshin and the two crew members. Yunshin, feeling upset and misunderstood, handed Jensen a box of medicine and left. Jensen, upon opening the box, realized it was medicine for her foot, and it lifted her spirits instantly. A bit later, Yunshin found himself at the office, mumbling in frustration. He couldn't get why Jensen was defending others and not herself. His secretary, Zilong, popped in and handed him a small book that turned out to be Jensen's. There, Zilong explained that the book had fallen during filming. As Yunshin flipped through Jensen's book, he discovered it was her diary, filled with her dreams and thoughts. His heart lightened when he saw his name sprinkled throughout the pages. Jensen had purposely written things down to stay focused on their contract marriage and avoid blunders, but Yunshin thought this meant she truly loved him. Soon after, an apology message from Jensen pinged on Yunshin's phone. In her heart, Jensen decided she'd forgive him this time. Yunshin's reply, however, was so short that it irked Jensen. Had it not been for the medicine he gave her, she probably wouldn't have texted him at all. In the evening, Yunshin got home and was met by Jensen's screams, sending his heart into a frenzy. He raced around searching for her, only to find out she was just practicing her acting. Yunshin was a bit puzzled cause why was she being so loud for just a one-word scene? Jensen felt a sting at his confusion and pointed out that, main character or not, she was giving it her all. She illustrated her point by showing him, acting it out right there. At that time, Yunshin couldn't resist her adorable antics and caught her in a playful grab. He tied her hair back, kissed her neck, but got a sharp bite on his neck from Jensen in return. Guilt washed over Jensen immediately, and she swiftly went to tend to his wound. But Yunshin kept being cheeky, which irked Jensen and prompted her to whack him with a pillow. In a surprising turn, she tumbled on top of him. After a moment of surprised silence, Jensen snapped back to reality, distancing herself from Yunshin with a cautious stand. The next day, Jensen decided to check out the shooting spot, wanting to make sure everything was safe before filming started. Once she got there, she felt something was off. Suddenly, Wangzu popped up, questioning her. Before she could say anything, he grabbed her. It turns out Wangzu, who she thought worked at the agency, was actually a criminal in disguise. In that moment, Jensen found herself in danger of being assaulted and tried to escape. Despite being shoved by Wangzu, Jensen remembered a self-defense move and kicked him where it hurts. Meanwhile, Yunshin learned about Wangzu's shady past from Zilong and raced to Jensen's location. By the time he got there, Jensen had managed to beat Wangzu, but more trouble was on the way with additional criminals showing up. Yunshin, full of determination, tackled all the criminals by himself. However, upon seeing Jensen in danger, he lost his focus. Trying to save her, he got stabbed and fell, leaving Jensen weeping at his side. Even in pain, he still tried to speak. The ordeal ended with him being rushed to the hospital, and Jensen steadfastly stayed by his side. After a while, Zilong brought back Jensen's book that Yunshin had read. Inside it, Jensen found a note from Yunshin, sharing his feelings with her. Zilong also shared how Yunshin had bravely skipped an important investor meeting just to rescue her. Jensen was deeply touched but also worried because Yunshin's career might be at risk due to his actions. Zilong reassured her, saying that the investors, moved by Yunshin's secretly noble deeds, still wanted to work with him. Jensen breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. In the meantime, some women, drawn by the news of Yunshin's accident, came to visit him, trying to flirt. But Jensen, who was beginning to fall for Yunshin, stepped in, declaring herself as his lawful wife, and therefore they had no right to visit him. The women, visibly frustrated, were escorted out by the hospital security. When Jensen spun around, to her surprise, Yunshin was already there, leaning back casually and watching her with amusement. At that time, she felt a burst of embarrassment and babbled, trying to explain herself. But Yunshin, nonchalant, simply tugged her over to his hospital bed. Her nerves spiked again as he drew her face closer to his. She surrendered, eyes closed, expecting a kiss. But instead, Yunshin just chuckled satisfiedly, leaving Zhenjin opening her eyes again, a mixture of annoyance and relief rushing through her, realizing she had been teased. Yet, Zhenjin still wanted to thank him for saving her, so she invited him for a meal once he got better. She dolled herself up and met a smiling Yunshin, feeling something different in her heart for him, and it was love. She found herself stealing secret glances at him throughout. However, she tried to keep her emotions in check. Upon reaching the restaurant, something flickered in Yunshin's memory. It was a familiarity with the place. Then, an excited Zhenjin explained that she used to work there, sparking Yunshin to recall a kind server from his past visits, although their face eluded his memory. A bit down the road, Zhenjin started realizing she had feelings for Yunshin. Even though she was falling for him, she still wanted to end their marriage. She figured out the reason behind Yunshin's amnesia by piecing together everything that happened to him. She was actually happy because figuring this out meant they could wrap up their marriage contract swiftly. But then, when Yunshin met her and took her hand, telling her his feelings in a way that was so sincere it brought her to tears, she just had to hug him tight. Not too much later, Yunshin brought Shenzhen to see a tech project at his company. This tech could record people's memories, which is super cool. They shared some of their own sweet memories there, and Zhenjin couldn't stop smiling at Yunshin. There he playfully asked if watching him 108 times a day wasn't enough for her. Hearing that, Zhenjin turned her face away, trying to act annoyed but failing miserably. Yunshin, catching her act, pulled her into his lap, and they had a lovely time together on their date. Long story short, Yunshin and Zhenjin got all dressed up and went to a fancy investor party for Yunshin's company. When Zhenjin got there, a bunch of ladies came over, super excited to meet her because, hey, she won Yunshin's heart, and he's a big deal CEO. But then, this other lady showed up, started saying mean things about Zhenjin, and even tried to splash water on her. Yunshin was having none of that, and stepped right in to protect Zhenjin, even if it meant trouble for his tech project. He told her she meant more to him than any project. Zhenjin, worried about Yunshin's company, didn't want him to leave the party despite the drama. Then, Yunshin was curious if he went broke, would she hate him? Hearing that, Zhenjin was quick to say no. And if he lost his investors, would she still believe he could find new ones? Again, she said yes, showing she believed in him no matter what. So after some drama, Zhenjin and Yunshin decided to leave. Out of nowhere, an old man named Yao shows up. It turns out, he's the stepdad of the woman who was mean to Zhenjin. But instead of being on her side, Yao was really upset with her, even pushing her and giving her a piece of his mind. Just then, another lady named Shanchai popped up. She's actually Yao's real daughter, and they're a super rich family. Zhenjin and Yunshin ended up chatting with Shanchai, and surprise, she and Zhenjin were old school friends. Zhenjin even helped to convince Yunshin to sign off on a tech project contract with Shanchai's help. Next, Shanchai led Yunshin and Zhenjin into a room, telling them to enjoy their date there, and guess what? The room was all done up super romantic thanks to Shanchai. Turns out, Yunshin used his memory recording tech to share some memories with Zhenjin. Zhenjin found out Yunshin had loved another woman, not her, in the past, but right then, she was just so touched by everything. And yep, they shared a sweet kiss. So a little bit later, Yunshin's ex Dio-in shows up out of nowhere with a bunch of journalists, all digging up Yunshin and Dio-in's past romance. Zhenjin, feeling all kinds of upset and angry, just walks out of there. Yunshin tries to go after her, but Dio-in gets in his way. At that time, Zhenjin, feeling super down, ends up drinking way too much, and word gets out about her contract marriage with Yunshin. There, people snap pictures of her in this drunk state, but she's too upset to care, feeling like she was just a stand-in woman all along. Out of the blue, a shop waiter comes over to chat with Zhenjin. She asks them if they think she looks weird in fancy clothes, since she's just a regular person. The waiter takes a moment, then tells her she looks beautiful no matter what she wears and tries to lift her spirits before leaving. Zhenjin, completely drunk by now, can barely stand, but right in the nick of time, Yunshin comes along and catches her. She spills all her sad feelings and complaints to him before finally dozing off, safe and sound in his arms. The next day, Zhenjin woke up, finding herself in a room, and was super surprised. When she glanced at her clothes, Yunshin popped in with his shirt wide open. Even though she was a bit tempted, she snapped back to reality, asking him for a divorce. but Yunshin told her he had taken her marriage certificate and ID card. Then he showed her a video from when she was drunk, pouring her heart out and asking him for love, which made her turn red with embarrassment. She tried to make up some excuses, but Yunshin assured her he wasn't going anywhere and kissed her gently. After he left, she watched the entire drunk video and was super embarrassed. The following day, Jensen bumped into Dioyen at a boutique. The shop employees mistook her for Dioyen. But then, Dioyen started twisting the truth and accusing Jensen of copying her clothes, which got Jensen really upset. Once they were alone, Jensen bravely told Dioyen to back off from Yunshin and even ripped her clothes in frustration. In the evening, Jensen got a message from Yunshin saying he might not make it home for dinner. So she went to her old workplace, a restaurant, to grab some food. While she was there, a friend spilled some unexpected news that Yunshin was the guy she used to help back in the days, and he had been looking for her ever since. At that time, Jensen remembered how Yunshin once said the restaurant felt familiar, and realized that he was that little fan who always cheered her on in her acting career, even though she tried to not think much about it. On her way home, Jensen saw Dioyen getting grabbed by two tough guys. They thought kidnapping Dioyen would hurt Yunshin because they thought he loved her, but Dioyen, trying to save herself, spilled the beans that Jensen was actually Yunshin's love, not her. That's when everything clicked for Jensen. Yunshin had always liked her. Once, he tried to give her a gift, but Dioyen took it. When Dioyen realized the gift wasn't for her, she tossed it aside. It was a small diary, which Jensen found and began writing her thoughts and dreams in. Yunshin eventually found the diary again and read all that she had written. Jensen was deeply moved by this revelation. Even the two tough guys holding Dioyen were teary-eyed hearing this sweet love story. Then she went straight to Yunshin, and they promised to always be there for each other. But just when they were about to embrace, poor Yunshin had another accident and had to be whisked away to the hospital. After a little while, Yunshin woke up, but oh no, he forgot all about Jensen due to amnesia again. Jensen was pretty annoyed, but she didn't give up. She tried a bunch of things to jog his memory, like replaying their old romantic moments together. She even pretended to be in pain and unable to walk, hoping Yunshin would carry her. But nope, he just grabbed a trolley instead, thinking she was too heavy to lift. Then, Jensen took Yunshin to a disco and tried to tease and flirt with him, but that didn't work either. He just left her there. She also took him to the restaurant where she used to work, trying to stir up old memories. But all her efforts didn't seem to make a dent, and she was getting super frustrated with him. Just when her patience was about to snap, Yunshin surprised her. Turns out he was only pretending to forget her to see how much she really loved him. After revealing this, he popped the question and proposed to her. They got legally married, turning their contract marriage into a real heartfelt one. They lived happily and full of joy as husband and wife, and that's where their true love story started, and that's how the film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if your pretend marriage is based on amnesia, just pretend to forget your pretend marriage and propose for real.